Being busy doesn't mean you're being productive. In fact, being busy is often a lack of clarity, and it's keeping you from real progress. In this episode, I'm going to show you how to lead yourself into real productivity so you can focus, get results, and finish 2025 strong. What's going on, and welcome to the Dream Lifestyle Podcast, where we are here as builders and leaders who simply want to become, we want to develop, we want to sharpen ourselves so that way we can become the leaders and builders that our dream requires. And so if you are here for the first time, thank you and welcome. It's an honor to have you here. And in today, we're talking about a topic that is so relevant and so important for each and every one of us as we build our dream. And that simply is how to go from being busy to being productive. I can tell you this because I just recently am getting out of an extremely busy season where I had to plan a conference. I'm having to plan things just with church, as well as keeping things moving for our leadership conference at the end of the year, as well as just beyond with our programs and everything like that. And I can tell you, I was caught in this cycle where I was extremely busy rather than being productive, where I was simply living out every single day, feeling like I was doing a whole bunch of stuff. But when the day was done, I was kind of just looking up at the ceiling, just saying, what in the world did I do today? Feeling like I had gotten nothing done at all. And so I really had to relook at really how I was working. I had to relook at, my day to day, my systems, my lifestyle, the whole nine, just so that way I could truly, as we're going to talk about, step out of busyness and into productivity. And one of the things that I can tell you with certainty, if you sense that you are doing a whole bunch of stuff, but not seeing much progress, there is a lack of clarity. It's not about working harder. It's about working smarter. And one of the ways you work smarter is by gaining clarity. And I'm going to be sharing with you in this conversation just 3 things that you need to gain clarity with, have clarity on, so that way, again, you can be as productive as you need to be, so that way you can maximize the end of this year, because we're in quarter 4, we're in the 4th quarter, and it is so important that we finish strong. And so whether you are doing well with your yearly goals, if you've had to pivot, wherever you may be, each and every one of us need to be productive as we finish out this year. So with all that being said, let's dive into the content. In order for us to step out of busyness and into productivity, we are going to need to, number 1, get clarity on results. This is important, and that sounds really simplistic, but it's important because when we think about being productive, our productivity is based on outputs, not just inputs. When we start thinking about our day to day and we only think about the inputs, meaning just the things that we are doing, but we don't pay close enough attention to the outputs, that's where we can fall into the trap of busyness. So we want to start off with getting clarity on our results. And in order for us to get clarity on our results, there's a 2-step process we need to do. We, number 1, need to get honest with our resources. Get honest with your resources, meaning resources in terms of finances, resources in terms of team and help, just people maybe that support you, resources in terms of just your energy. Just you have to be honest with what tools you have to work with. Because if you aren't clear with what you have, you can end up basically thinking you have tools, but then when the time comes to call on the person, when the time comes to use the tool, whatever it is you thought you had, it's not actually available to you. And so it is important that if we want to start getting clarity on our results, we get very honest with our resources. I don't know about you, but there have been plenty of times in the past where I would forecast the amount of money I would have at a certain point and start planning from that place, but it's like an inflated number. It's not actually what I'd have, or it was like that number was contingent upon a whole bunch of other things happening. And honestly, that's where you get busy, because then you basically are setting yourself up for a future problem, because you just got to be honest. Hey, this is what I know I'm going to have. And if anything else more comes, that's overflow and we can plan for that. But when I'm gaining clarity on the results I want to get, I need to be honest with my resources. Now, after you get honest with resources, you then need to get honest with your why. Why is all of this important? Because it is a grind to be productive, and not just productive short term. In order for us to truly be leaders and builders that people want to follow, in order for us to be leaders and builders with great reputation and a great discipline, we have to be long term in our productivity, which means we have to be honest with our why. I told you guys that I'm kind of getting out of a very busy season, and one of those big tasks that I had to do was plan an entire men's conference in 3 months. And it was a very complex conference. It wasn't like a simple, 1 day meeting. This was a 3-day retreat with speakers, with hotel arrangements, with group discussions, with media, and all this stuff. There were so many moving pieces, and I only had 3 months to really put it all together. Now, for context, planning conferences at that level usually take a minimum of 6. And so here I am tasked with putting together this entire conference in 3 months. I can tell you this was a moment where I needed to be clear with my why. And this was a moment that I needed to be productive and not busy. And so, what I really had to do, because I'll be honest, when I first got the task, I was annoyed. Like, completely honest with you, I was totally annoyed. But I got honest with my why. I got clear on the fact of, you know what? I may be annoyed with this task. Yes, it may be a big lift, but you know what? There's specifically, at least in this context with this example, there's men's lives who are going to be improved if I steward this season well. If I steward these next 3 months well, and I stay in a place of productivity and not busyness, life life can change for these men who are coming to this conference. And so I'm telling you that story just as an illustration of why it's so important that you are honest with your why. And your why, of course, as you guys know, has to be bigger than you. It needs to be more than just your own self interest. And so when you get clear on your why and you're just honest with, no, this is why this matters. This is why I'm doing it. This is the outcome, not just the input. This is the outcome. And here's why that outcome matters. When you get clear on these things, it makes it a lot easier for you to have clarity on the results that you'd like to see, because it is so important that when you're in the middle of it and you're grinding it out and you're working smart, not hard, you need to have clarity on your results, as well as being honest with your resources and being honest with your why, because clarity on your results means that you are clear on the outcome, not just the inputs. If you only focus on inputs, you are only painting half of the picture. Results are what get things done. Results are what people pay attention to. And so if you want to step out of busyness, stop thinking about just all the things you need to do and start thinking about what are the outcomes that need to happen. Once we get done with getting clarity on the results we'd like to see, again, the outcomes, the second thing that we need to do is we need to get clarity on schedule. We need to get clarity on the schedule, meaning whatever the schedule is, we need to have a clear idea as to, okay, based on where I am, based on the outcome I'd like to see, what are the steps in between? And this is where you can't negotiate with yourself. This is where you have to think very objectively. You basically look at the mountain and you break it down into small bits. This is where you look at the long path and you take it day by day, step by step. And you're breaking a big thing down to a small thing, and you break it down according to schedule. And so if we want to gain clarity on our schedule, there's 3 things that we need to do. The first thing is that we have to simply clarify the steps. I told you guys the example with the conference that I had to plan, where I had to get clear on, okay, there's speakers, there's media, within media, there's people's notes, there's hotel arrangements, there's how people are going to travel, there's meals. And like I basically broke down each of the things that I needed to get a specific result with. And once I was able to get clear on the steps, I painted a good picture as to here are all the things that need to be done for this conference to be a success. Now, success meaning the outcome that I got clear on. Now, once I got clear on the steps, this was just objectionable. Like this, I should say objective, meaning regardless of how I felt about the conference, regardless of my opinion on the situation, these areas were a part of this conference and they needed attention. They needed intention as well. So once I got clear on the steps, the second thing that I needed to clarify was how I worked. And that's what you have to do. You have to clarify how you work. One of the things that I love to tell people in terms of productivity is, and I make the analogy of we're all different types of cars. For some of us, you are a Mack truck, meaning that you will just bulldoze, you'll roll over shoulders and you'll go on hills and go through potholes and everything like that. That's just how you work. You're built like that. But you also might not be as flexible as someone who works more like a Ferrari or a sports car, where the person who's more of a Ferrari and a sports car, they're bending corners fast, they're able to go faster and everything like that, but they're not necessarily going over bumps and going over speed bumps and things of that nature. So again, you have to simply know how you work. Now, I'm using the analogy of a car, but practically, you should know how long your window of productivity is. For example, I know I usually work very well in like 2 hour clips where I might need a break. Now, break does not necessarily mean I take the rest of the day off, but where it's like, you know what, I can lock in on something for 2 strong hours, and then I'm gonna get up and maybe walk around for 10 minutes. I'm gonna get up and, get pay attention to my daughter for 10 minutes or something like that, and then get right back to work. That's just an easy example of knowing how I work. Also, you need to know just what time of the day you best function. For some of you, you're like me, it's in the mornings. Others, it's the middle of the day. Others, you guys are my night owls. But for the most part, you have to clarify how you work. And based on your awareness of how you work, that's when you start basically piecing together the steps as well, fitting that into just your best zones of work. I'm sorry to interrupt the conversation, but I wanted to take a moment to let you know and personally invite you to this year's Dreamer Symposium. On December 5th and 6th, we're hosting a leadership conference for you to create vision for the new year and grow in your self-leadership. So whether you're looking to climb the corporate ladder, whether you're building a business, or you're growing a ministry, it is important that in order for you to succeed, that you have vision and you lead yourself well, which is why this year's theme is resilient leadership, because it's not about what's happening to you, but it's about what you can make happen in your world. And you need to know that you are built to overcome. And in these 2 days, you're going to learn how, because resilience will be necessary. Because for you to build the life that you dream of, you're going to need to overcome some things. And so I would look forward to seeing you there on December 5th and 6th in Jackson, New Jersey for the Dreamer Symposium. Now let's get back to the episode. Now, once you clarify the steps and you clarify how you work, the third thing that you need to do is you need to clarify the pressure points. Now, this is where we take the steps and we prioritize. This is where we take the steps and we say, okay, based on all the areas, based on the next steps that need to happen in order for this thing, or whatever this in my context was conference, but in order for this thing to be successful, what is most important right now? So I looked at speakers, I looked at the media, I looked at hotel arrangements, I looked at food, right? I needed to get clear as to, okay, based on how I work, where is the best place to start? Where would I see the most impact as a result of me locking down that area? And so for me, one of the things was really just the speakers and everything that they needed. And so I was able to provide for them their mic preferences. I was able to get their notes early. I was able to get their speaker graphics and everything like that. Like, I wanted to make sure the speakers had everything that they need, simply because during that time and duration, they needed to be prepared to speak at the conference. And that was just one example. But because I was clear on the pressure points, like what were the things that were like most pressing, I was able to work at a higher level. I was no longer busy. I was able to be productive. And so, with all of these three steps, you just gain clarity on your schedule, because I know how I work. I know the steps necessary to achieve the outcome that I'm clear on. Now I have priorities, because your schedule only reveals your priorities. If you truly want to be productive, it will be seen in your schedule. If you're the type of individual where you know you need to start using your phone calendar, let this be your sign to start using your calendar. We are too old to just keep it all in our head. Put it in your calendar. And so that's the second step. If you want to move out of busyness and into productivity, you clarify your schedule. The third and final thing that you need to do if you want to step out of busyness and into productivity as a leader is you need clarity on your systems. Now, this is a high level, broad word simply for two things. You need to plan your deadlines and you need to plan your no's. plan your deadline and plan your no's. No's being N-O's, plural, N-O's. You need to just basically get clear, think ahead on, here's what I need to start saying no to, so that way I can finish the task. Because too many of our yeses rob us from being productive. Where you want to be a good friend, you want to take on an extra project, but it stops you from doing the thing and completing the thing that matters most. And that's why you find yourself doing a whole bunch of stuff, but not being productive. You want to be clear and think ahead on, what are my deadlines and what do I need to say no to? And it's just for a moment. It's just so that way you can see the outcome that you got clear on. And so, first off, like I said, with deadlines, be very clear as to when this needs to be done in a manner, depending on just the space of time that you have, in a manner that allows you to get it done with some level of comfort. So one of the things for my conference I had to do was think through, okay, if I'm able to, this conference is 3 months out, if I'm able to get the speakers everything they need by the end of this month, if I'm able to handle all types of hotel, food, and everything else like that by the end of month 2, I'll be good. And then if I'm able the week of to make sure that, people are assigned and everyone's ticketing and everything like that is in order by that 3rd month, I should be fine. Right. And again, you just think ahead and you say, okay, based on everything that I need, based on the things that I got clarity on, what are the deadlines that I need to meet? And even that helps you be productive. That helps you look at your to-do list and say, okay, based on where I need to go, based on the outcome I'd like to see, here's what needs to get done today. And again, you set deadlines. And as you set those deadlines, it'll be a lot easier for you to say no to certain things, because you don't want to rob yourself because you just say yes to things that actually hurt you the most. And again, it might seem like the right thing to do. And yes, it might be uncomfortable to say no. But again, if you truly want to build, if you truly want to see progress with all the work that you're expending, you're going to need to say no. And so one thing I can tell you about your systems as a leader is that the results of your systems display your discipline. Once you establish these deadlines, once you establish what you need to start saying no to, it's simply up to you to do it. It's up to you to truly follow through on your word, commit yourself to the process, and be productive. And so, as a recap to everything that we just talked about today, so that way you as a builder can go into your world and be productive and not busy, we want to gain clarity. And so, we want to gain clarity on 3 things. Point number 1, we talked about how we want to have clarity on our results. And the second thing that we talked about, how we want to have clarity on our schedules. And third, we want to have clarity on our systems. If you do these 3 things, if you take the time to get clear on these things, you will find yourself going to sleep at night at peace. You will find yourself going to sleep at night happy that you got things done because you were productive and not busy. And so I hope that this conversation was helpful to you. And all I'm going to ask you to do is that if this was helpful to you, I want you to share this with someone else that you know, love, and believe in. I appreciate you. I look forward to the next time that we talk. And always remember, your dream is possible as long as you're willing to grow for it.